Today's presentation will discuss the steps after a student applies for the Bright Future scholarships. What comes next? First, I recommend downloading the most recent handbook from the floridabrightfutures.gov website. There are 3 handbooks that students should download. Chapter 1, the Initial Eligibility Handbook. Chapter 2, Scholarship Information. This handbook talks about the awards, the award amounts, and transferring the awards between institutions for colleges and universities. Chapter 3 is the renewal, the reinstatement, and anything that has to do with restoration for the Bright Future Scholarship Awards. There's also information on each of the scholarships and additional resources that could help students with questions or concerns they may have. This checklist will help students get started on their Bright Future Scholarship road to qualification. First, they'll create an account, then check the email from Florida Department of Education and follow the instructions for submitting the Florida financial aid application. If the student is here at Lake Cal, we will do this application with the students through their social studies classes. Students will need to continue to complete all the required coursework, earn the required GPA, complete the number of volunteer service hours or work hours, as well as achieve the required test scores if it's required. Students can check their online Bright Future Scholarship account for communication and program eligibility. Remember to check the Bright Futures account. When students set up their account, they provided a login name and a password. This information was emailed to the student after they finished the application. In the top right corner of this webpage, you'll see the login section. Students need their login and password in order to get back into their Bright Futures account. If they don't have this information, they will need to have the password and the account reset by Bright Futures. For the Bright Future Scholarship Awards, there are different types. We have the Florida Academic, the Florida Medallion, the Gold Seal Cape Scholarship, and the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship. Each of the scholarships require a certain GPA, community service, the required high school credits, as well as minimum test scores. If a student becomes a National Merit Finalist or a National Merit Scholar, earns an AP Capstone Diploma, an ACE Diploma, or an IB Diploma, could get Bright Future Scholarship money. However, the recognition program must be completed prior to high school graduation, and confirmations of this information would come directly from ACE, IB, or College Board as late as September after graduation. Students would still need to complete volunteer work, employment, or a combination of those in order to get the scholarship. Here at Lake Cal, many students are working on the Advanced Placement Capstone Diploma. They would complete 100 service or paid work hours, as well as complete AP seminar and AP research, along with a level 3 or better on the examination for those AP courses, in addition to taking 4 additional AP courses, as well as passing those exams with a level 3 or higher. When students log into their Bright Futures account, they will see this eligibility report. At the top, it shows the test scores: ACT, SAT, CLT, PERT, or CPT. To the right are the voluntary service hours or the paid work hours for community service, as well as any programs that they were in for IB, ACE, or National Merit. At the bottom, in section 2, each of the scholarships are broken down into their requirements. For the Florida Academic and Florida Medallion Scholarships, students must have 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 3 credits of science, 2 credits of foreign language, and 3 credits of the required social studies. Bright Futures will recalculate the grades in each of the subjects and come up with their own weighted GPA. In this case, the student has a 4.41 GPA for Bright Futures. Below that, it says potentially eligible. This student may be eligible for the Florida Academic Scholars and the Florida Medallion Scholars. However, under the Gold Seal Vocational Program, they take into consideration not just the English, math, science, foreign language, and social studies, but they add in any of the performing fine arts or the vocational programs. Those grades will be calculated into that GPA, and if you notice, it's calculated differently for the vocational Gold Seal. Underneath that, it also states the student is missing requirements for the vocational program, meaning they did not get the credits needed for the Gold Seal. All of this information is on the eligibility report in March, and students can access it from their Bright Futures account. For transcripts, credits, and GPA, the school board will ship all of the high school's transcripts directly to the state of Florida in February and again in June. Then the Bright Future scholarships will pull the transcript out of the state of Florida repository, and for early evaluation, which will happen in March and April, students will get an email from Bright Futures explaining their potential eligibility. Remember, the GPA for Bright Futures is not the same as Lake Cal's GPA. All of the core academic credits are recalculated by Bright Futures. They only use the academic courses, and this is a weighted GPA, which is a little different from Lake Cal. Students need to understand also that the final transcripts are shipped by the school board in June directly to the state of Florida after graduation. For community service, there are 3 documents that must be turned in to the school counselor: the application, the hours showing on the time log, and a 1-page essay. The link and the QR code that are on the screen will take you to the community service application and time log. At the bottom of this page, you'll notice that the volunteer service hours are different for each of the scholarships. However, if a student is working and using their employment hours, they are required to complete 100 hours total. This is an example of an application. Each job site or volunteer site needs to have its own application, and the organization or employer must sign the application. This should be done before the student starts to calculate their hours. There's a section in the middle of the application that asks the student to decide if they want an A for a half credit to weigh into their GPA, or if they want a P for pass-fail, which does not weigh into their GPA. This is important for some students who have a very high GPA, and earning an A might bring down their overall GPA. So if a student wants a pass-fail grade for the community service or the work hours, they must have this part of the form initialed by the student and the parent. Also, at the bottom of the application, the student, the parent, and the principal designee sign the form before starting the hours. The designee would be the school counselor. We sign as the principal's designee for community service. Again, the application should be done before starting those community service hours. To the right is an example of a time log. All of the hours, the dates, and where the student served their time or did their employment need to be signed off by a supervisor. The parent, student, and principal designee would sign the bottom of the form. Don't forget, there's also a one-page essay that needs to be turned in by the student. All three of these documents will come to the school counselor so we can add the community service onto the transcript. All of the volunteer or work hours must be completed, and all of three of the documents must be turned into the school counselor by December of the senior year in order for Bright Futures to provide an eligibility during their early evaluation in March. Another example of what it looks like on the transcript will say voluntary public service for a half credit. If students do not have the voluntary public service listed on the transcript for their community service, they cannot be awarded a Bright Future scholarship. Again, there are two forms and one reflective essay that must be turned into the school counselor. I get a lot of questions. What am I supposed to write? What does the essay look like? So students should write a one-page double-spaced essay, write about what they did for their volunteer or employment, describe how their efforts helped other people, and write about what they learned about themselves, about their job, about helping others, and any other new insights from their work or volunteer experience. Remember that all three documents are required to be turned into the school counselor in order for community service to be added to the transcripts. Students should be aware of what the Bright Future scholarship requirements are. Again, looking in the handbook, students can determine if they have the right score to meet the requirement for their academic or their medallion or gold seal scholarship. The testing companies will automatically upload all of the scores directly to the state of Florida, and the scores will be held in the repository. Then Bright Futures will pull the test scores from the state repository and recalculate that based on their scholarship awards. Remember that test scores are important. They help Bright Futures determine if you meet the criteria for one of their scholarships. Students do have an opportunity to retake the tests all the way up until August 31st after graduation. This slide shows the required scores from ACT, the SAT, which is the new digital version that has been used since March 1st of 2024 until now. This is the current test that's being given through the school. And the old test, which is the SAT with the separate scores for reading, written language, and math. That second set of scores for the SAT would have been given before March 1st of 2024, and it would have been the paper version of the SAT. PERT scores are also accepted for the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship, but it is not accepted for the Florida Academic Scholars, the Florida Medallion. This slide will show the scores that are required for Bright Future scholarships. The ACT and each of the separate subtests for reading, English, and math. The new SAT, which is the digital version, students will be taking these on the computer. It gives an evidence-based read-write score and a math score. Before March of 2024, the SAT was a paper version, and the scores were separated by reading, written language, and math. This is the old SAT scores. Most of our students are using the first set of scores for SAT, which was the digital that we started using after March 1st of 2024. The PERT scores can be used, but it only applies to the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship, not to the others. How do I know if I'm eligible for a Bright Futures scholarship? Well, check your Bright Futures account. Log into the account, verify your credits, see how Bright Futures calculated your GPA. Remember, it's different from Lake Hal's GPA. Verify your community service hours. But remember, if you didn't turn your forms in to your counselor by December, those community service hours will not show up until the July evaluation. Remember to review the test scores. If your test scores are too low for the SAT, ACT, or CLT, consider retaking the test in order to reach the criteria that Bright Future sets forth. You have until August 31st after graduation to get the scores necessary for the Bright Futures. Students should check their Bright Futures account for the eligibility evaluation information. Bright Futures will post early evaluation in March and April. Students need to know if they've got the right test scores, if they've met the required GPA, or if they still need community service. Remember, if they haven't turned in the community service by December, they'll have to wait for the final eligibility in July and August. Students will also be notified of their eligibility once everything has been finalized by Bright Futures after summer. The colleges and universities will automatically be notified of the scholarship award. But it is crucial that if a student changes their institution, meaning goes to a different college or university, they'll have to go into their account and update the institution that's listed so that that college or university can obtain the information from Bright Futures. Students must go into their account and update their profile. They can also call the customer service number for Bright Futures if they have changed colleges from what they initially posted in their account. The list of eligible institutions is available at the Office of Student Financial Assistance website. It's important to know that the Bright Future Scholarship Awards, once they're calculated, will be dispersed by the college and the financial aid office where they will be attending. The funds will be dispersed after the end of the add drop period each term. So students will register for classes, they'll get their class schedule, and then the financial aid office at the college or university will verify that they are actually enrolled in the courses. Once the add drop date has passed, they will disperse the funds. A student who is using the Bright Future Scholarship Award must earn a high school diploma or its equivalent. They must be a Florida resident and a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen as determined by the college or university. Students must be enrolled as a degree or a certificate seeking student at an eligible institution after high school. Students also have to enroll in 6 semester hours, and those courses cannot be the remedial courses. And then if a student is not going to use their Bright Future Scholarship immediately after graduating, they can apply within 5 years of graduation to have their Bright Futures Award reinstated. For more information about the reinstatement, read the Bright Futures Handbook, Chapter 3. What happens if a student withdraws from a college class or drops it after the add drop date? Well, the student is required to pay the college back for the cost of that dropped or withdrawn course. Any student who does not repay the college the amount that the Bright Futures was used to pay for the course because the student dropped or withdrew it, they will not be eligible for future awards. For students who start college immediately after graduation, can they use a Bright Futures Award? Yes. Funding is available during that summer term right after graduation if the student is eligible for the Academic Scholars or the Medallion Scholars. The funding is only available if the college or university allows the student to enroll as a degree-seeking student during the summer term. They also have to be enrolled in 6 semester hours of non-remedial courses. Please refer to the Bright Future Student Handbook Chapter 2 for more information. What if I want to take a gap year? Do I lose my Bright Futures? The answer is no. However, if you're doing military service or working full-time as a religious or a government official doing service, you can defer the scholarship. There's additional information regarding this situation in the Bright Futures Handbook for Chapter 3. Students who are deferring the scholarship will have to reinstate their request for the Bright Futures. Remember, the deadline for all of your credits and test scores is August 31st of your graduation year. Community service must be on the transcript by December for early evaluation and by May 1st before graduation for the final evaluation during summer. Students sometimes ask, can I have more than one scholarship? Yes, apply for as many scholarships as you can. Use Zillow from the Clever app. Look around for other scholarships and apply far and wide. The more scholarships you apply for, the higher chance you'll get of receiving more than one. If you have questions or eligibility issues, you should contact the state of Florida directly for the Bright Future scholarships. The phone number is listed as well as the website. The QR code will take you directly to the website as well. Rollins College has created a great summary of how to keep the Bright Futures Award after you've already started college. Watch this video. You can use the QR code or the link below to take you to the Rollins College video on how to keep your Bright Futures Award.